Good morning, children. Welcome to Session 3, Story of Microorganisms, Part 1. And now let's make a quick recapitulation what we learned in Session 1 and 2. Now, for the first time, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek observed microorganisms and he called them as animalcules and later as bacteria. And Theo Margarita namibiensis is considered as the biggest bacteria and which was found recently by that's Skulls at the coastal regions of Namibia. And even we studied how to observe different types of algae from water bodies and even how to observe these protozoans by using this hay and also this decoction, and even we observed how to observe microarthropods. Okay, now let's come to our lesson. Now in this topic, firstly we are going to learn some facts on microorganisms. So when now we observe this soil contains different varieties of microorganisms like bacteria, then fungi, protozoans, and even microarthropods. Right? Almost all the types of animal microbes are present inside the soil, but when we take a top 8 inches from 1 acre of area, then in that amount of soil we can find around 5.5 tons. Got it? 5.5 tons of fungi and bacteria. Got it? It's a very important for beds. Top 8 inches of a 1 acre of area contains around 5.5 tons of fungi and bacteria. And you know, these microorganisms are especially responsible for decomposing. Decomposing means converting large complex molecules into simple molecules. You know, when there are some plant and animal dead parts in the soil, these plant and animal parts are decomposed by this fungi and bacteria and convert these dead parts into manure. And so because of this manure, they help in increasing the fertility of the soil. Fertility means the producing capacity of the soil can be called as fertility. Right? In this way, these microbes also help in increasing the fertility of the soil. They make the soil rich in nutrients. But nowadays, to control different types of disease, we are using different types of chemicals, especially these pesticides. Pesticides means, this is a kind of chemical which is usual to kill pests on the plants. Okay, in the same way we use insecticides to kill insects, then fungicides to kill fungi, like this, right? So here, whenever we use this excess use of pesticides, then these pesticides, they enter the soil and kill the microorganisms which are present in the soil. Okay, that's why we should not use excess use of not only these pesticides but all the types of chemicals. Okay, so the natural conversion of plant and animal parts into manure will be decreased because of this activity. Got it? Okay, so these are the facts about microorganisms. Now the next topic, observing soil microorganisms. So how we can observe the microorganisms that are present in the soil means, now from wherever the soil we want to observe, from that area, it may be a field or a ground or whatever the area it may be, from that field you can take some sample, a fist, okay, full fist of soil in a beaker, glass beaker or a glass tumbler, and then First we have to collect the soil from the field, and then we need to add some water to that, and then with the help of any stick or any substance, we have to mix that well. Stirring means mixing that. Okay, water and the soil. Okay. Now, can you find any change in the water? Yes. Now the water becomes very, very dirty, and appears to be brown in color. Have you seen the water in rainy season when more rainfall occurs? Then you can find that this flood water is running over the roads, and if you observe that water, how it appears? It appears very dirty and muddy, right? Now in the same way, here also it appears like this. Okay, now we need to wait for some time. That means without disturbing that, we need to keep that aside, so that what happens? All the soil particles, that means which are having some weight, all these soil particles will settle down, and so at the top you can find a little bit of clear water. Now when we observe the water, that means in first stage, and now can you find any change? Yeah, in the first case you can find dirty water, but now the water is a little bit clear, right? Now from that water we need to take 1 or 2 drops. We need to take 1 or 2 drops of water over the slide, and then we need to observe that under the microscope. Got it? Very simple. First we have to take some soil sample in a beaker, then add water, then mix that well, then settle that for some time, so that all the soil particles settle down, and at the top we can find a clear water, and from that collect 1 or 2 drops, and then observe that under the microscope. Clear? So when we observe that water, here we can find microorganisms like this. Okay, so we can find different varieties of microorganisms under this under this microscope. Clear? This is the way how to observe microorganisms in the soil. Now let's come to habitats of microorganisms. Habitat. Now what is meant by habitat? Yeah, natural living place. Where actually they are living, that place can be called as a habitat. Right? Say for example, take a lion or a tiger, like these animals. Where they living? They're living in a forest. So we can say forest is the habitat of those animals. Clear? So where we can find these microorganisms means these microorganisms are present everywhere. They are present everywhere. That means around us we can find these microorganisms. Okay, we can find them in air, even water, and even in soil. Right? So we can find them everywhere around us, and even we can find them inside and outside. Inside and outside of human beings. That means over the body we can find, and even inside the body we can find. Okay, in the same way we can find over the body of animals and plants, and even inside the bodies of all the animals and plants. Okay, then these microorganisms, they can survive in all the types of environments. All the types means not favorable or unfavorable, like this, whatever the environment it may be. So they can without any problem they can survive. That means which ranges from ice cold climate. Ice cold climate means there we can find a freezing temperature. That means below 0 degrees centigrade. Even in that low temperature to hot springs. Hot springs means there we can find the temperature around 100 degrees. 100 degrees. That means very, very high temperature. So here we can say they are able to survive at low temperatures and at the same time high temperatures. Okay, and even in deserts and also marshy places. Deserts means where we can find a very low temperature and high or low water. Okay, and even we can find a high temperature. But what about marshy places. In marshy places, we can find much water. Always the plants that are living in the waterlogged areas. Waterlogged means, have you seen the recent movies? Detective, have you seen Detective Telugu movie, Visuals, right? So in that movie, we can find the climax. There, in a climax scene, they go to some pond area, and have you seen that area? Right? So what we call those areas means we call them as marshy lands. The plants which are living in completely wetlands or water-filled areas. Such plants can be called as marshy places, marshy plants, right? Okay, so in the deserts too, marshy places, and even they're able to grow on other organisms. Other organisms means like humans, plants, animals like this as parasites. That means some microbes they live on others as parasites. Parasites means they depend on others for getting shelter or the food and both. For example, take you. Can you say you are independent? No, you're not independent and you're completely dependent on your parents. You are getting a shelter, you are getting your clothing, food, everything from your parents. So you are a parasite and your parents are considered as a host. Clear? So in this way, some microbes act as parasites and some are free living. Free living means even though they are depending on others, they won't cause any disease. So such microbes can be called as a free living, and some lead a symbiotic mode. Already in previous session we studied that symbiotic mode. Symbiosis means mutual dependence of two organisms. They depend on each other, but they won't cause any harm to each other. Clear? So in this way, when we observe this concept, we can find that microbes are able to survive in almost all the types of conditions. Clear? And now see here in this picture, you can find here we can find the microbes are living in the soil, and here in the water, even in a water drop you can find this. And this is our body. In our body, especially in intestine, we can find different type of microorganisms like this, and even in air. So whatever the air we are releasing out and we are taking in to our body, that air contains different types of microbes like this. Correct? So from this picture, you get an idea that microbes are present everywhere. Clear? Now, let's know about viruses. Now, viruses, these are extremely small microorganisms. Now, already we studied microorganisms means which cannot be seen with our naked eyes. But when we observe all the microorganisms, viruses are said to be the very, very smallest things. Very, very smallest things, right? And remaining microorganisms can be seen by using microscope, compound microscope, simple microscope like this. But these viruses can be seen only with the electron microscope. Only with the electron microscope, but we cannot see them with the normal microscope. So we can say these are extremely small microorganisms, right? And they're able to live inside and outside the living cells, right? So when they're living inside, when they're living outside the living cells, outside the living cells means that means say for example, it comes out of our body. Then in such conditions, it behave like a non-living thing. Correct? That means it becomes like a dead. Right? But when it is inside the living cell means inside any human cell or a plant cell or animal cell, then they behave like living things. Correct? That means inside the living cells, they act as living organisms, and outside the living cells they behave like a non-living organisms, right? Okay, that's why these viruses are considered as a connecting link between living and non-living things. Clear? Connecting link between living and non-living. And even inside these living cells, they're able to reproduce. They're able to reproduce just like all the remaining microorganisms, plants, and animals. That means just like living organisms, they're able to reproduce when they are present inside the living cells, but not outside the living cell. Clear? So these are the facts about viruses. Can be seen with the electron microscope. Inside the living cells, they act as living things, and outside as non-living things. And so we consider them as a connecting link between living and non-living. Okay. Now, see here we can find some pictures of viruses, and what is this? This virus, I think everyone knows about this. Why means today we are all suffering from a very dangerous disease, that is corona disease, and this corona is caused by this COVID-19 virus. So this is either we call this as a coronavirus or a COVID-19 virus, and this is we call this as the TMV. TMV means tobacco mosaic virus. That means this virus can cause a disease, mosaic disease in a tobacco plant, right? So we call that as a TMV. And what is this? Means this is what is this? HIV. This is a HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus, and this virus is able to cause a disease called AIDS. Clear? So these viruses are extremely dangerous to all the living things. Now let's see what are the diseases caused by different types of microorganisms. Means when we take this bacteria, this bacteria is able to cause some disease like typhoid. No, it's a kind of a fever. The next tuberculosis. Tuberculosis means it's a lungs infection, and even septicemia. Septicemia means this is an infection in blood, or we can say blood infection, right? And when we take this fungi, microarthropods, and a bacteria, they can cause different types of skin disease. Skin disease, especially this fungi can cause a disease called a ringworm. So especially the children are suffering from this ringworm infections. And the next microarthropods are able to cause scabies. It is also like this. That means you can find a severe itching. And the bacteria can cause leprosy. Bacteria can cause leprosy, and different types of disease, right? And then protozoans. So protozoans means single cell organisms, and they are able to cause a disease like malaria and amoebiasis. Malaria, well about this, and amoebiasis. Amoebiasis means it is like watery motions and vomitings, right? Okay. And viruses. Even these viruses can cause a very dangerous disease like say polio. Now our government is now and then it is have you heard about the program that is a pulse polio? Yeah. Why that program is to control this polio disease. And then swine flu, it's a kind of infection. And the next conjunctivitis. Conjunctivitis means it's a kind of eye infection where the eyes turns into red color. Then a smallpox, chickenpox, these are caused to skin. Okay, and even this AIDS. This AIDS is also because of the virus, and that today we are suffering from a very dangerous disease. What is that? Yeah, that is corona. This corona is also caused by this virus. What's the name of that virus? Yeah, that is a COVID-19, right? So these are the different types of disease caused by different types of microorganisms, and with this we come to the end of this lesson, right? Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.